Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and thanks for coming to this webinar that deals with the City of Cambridge Leadership Development Program, specifically an orientation for the 360. So this is for a group of people who haven't made it to the webinars or the focus groups, the orientation sessions that we did. I'm going to cover off the same material here in a webinar. My number and name and number is at the back end if you need to ask me any questions about it. So Michael Howes from 2WA Consulting, contact information towards the end. I'm going to roll through this in about an hour or so. And of course, you can start and stop as you see fit. But let's get into the objectives first of all. The idea is we want to give you a little bit of a sense about the leadership development program. Now, I know for the firefighters, the fire department folks, you may be undergoing, I think you're undergoing a different program. So we'll spend most of our time talking about the 360 process instead, your role in the process, and understand the logistics of how we're going to complete the survey, because the key thing here is to find people to give you feedback, good feedback about how you operate against the competencies that have been developed. So a little bit of the leadership development program overview. Some of the outcomes are about becoming more self-aware about who we are as managers, a little bit about discovering techniques and tips that help everyone more consistently model the 6 leadership traits and the values, and identify a few changes where you might make in terms of how you manage and lead. We understand there'll be a lot of material offered up, and we understand also that people can't absorb it all. So if you pick 1 or 2 or 3 items that you can really sink your teeth into and use, and they help you develop, that's really what we're looking for here. We appreciate we're offering a lot of ideas, but that's because some people pick up some and not others. Wanted to jump into the 360-degree feedback because that's really the primary piece of what we want to talk about today. So 360 feedback is a process that's been around for many years. The idea is that you get feedback from a number of different people around you. And when we say around you, we mean the org structure around you. In other words, your boss is higher up in the org chart, your peers are sort of beside you in the org chart, direct reports beneath you. Everyone has a slightly different view of you. The 360 degrees comes from the idea of talking about a circle, 360 degrees in a circle. And if you thought about lining up 360 people shoulder to shoulder in a circle around you in the center, each would have a slightly different view. And if you wanted a picture, a full picture of yourself, you would need everyone's perspective. We don't use 360 people, but we take the same approach here. We want views from what your supervisor, your peers, your direct reports, and compare that with what you think, and that'll give you a complete picture of your strengths and your weaknesses. We haven't quite figured out how to run this yet, but we should get pretty good by the time we get to the end of the webinar. How does it work? So the 360 process is based upon the leadership framework, and every subject gets rated on each of those leadership framework behaviors. There are going to be 6 people rating them. Yourself is one. We call you now a subject. Your manager is another. He or she is a rater, as are the other 6 people that you get to choose. And of all those group, once all those 8 provide feedback, you'll have a good picture about your strengths, your weaknesses, which will make you more self-aware. It will help you pay attention to perhaps areas where you want to learn more skills, better skills, upgrade your skills. And also in operating, you'll understand that maybe there's some places you need to pay a little more attention because some areas you aren't as strong at others. Each of the 6 leadership framework training modules, there's a module for each, and the idea is that we built the curriculum to help build the skills related to that module. So we identified the competency, we came up with a set of behaviors that we felt identified it clearly, and then we built curriculum that said, hey, if you want to learn these behaviors, here's the exercises you need to go through. And the idea is reviewing your 360 advance of each module. So once you get your report back and you're going in through each leadership framework module, you review your 360 to say, okay, hey, what were my strengths and weaknesses here? And that helps you increase your self-awareness and understand exactly what you need to pay attention to when it comes to this particular module. Uh, the 360 is predicated on the idea of actually having feedback. So feedback, and I usually, if I'm in a class, I ask the question, so how many people got feedback in the last couple of weeks? And most people put up their hand. And then I talk about what feedback really is, and that usually changes people's answers. Feedback is used for one of two purposes. One is it reinforces a behavior. The other is it corrects a behavior. It's a development tool. So unless someone tells you specifically the behaviors that you engaged in that they either liked or didn't like, you're not getting feedback. So if someone comes up and says, hey, great job, and you're not exactly sure what you did such that that person saw that what you did was a great job, you're not getting feedback, you're getting a compliment. Nothing wrong with that. But let's not pretend that it is something it's not. If people are going to give you feedback, they have to be very clear and very specific. And one of the reasons that we do the 360 ahead of a training program is to make people more self-aware, but also to get people to practice giving feedback. It's one of the best tools you've got as a manager. And the more comfortable you become helping people understand that the behaviors that we like, we reinforce those, and that we don't like, we correct, the better they'll be able to contribute to the organization's success, and they'll be more successful. The more managers are comfortable providing feedback, the better off the organization is going to be overall. Feedback is motivating. Um, Most people, I believe, come to work to do a good job. They may not all know exactly how to do that good job, and some of it may do it better than others. But I believe they all want to come and be successful and contribute to the organization's success. Feedback can help people understand when they're doing something right or they're doing something wrong, and then by changing everything that someone is doing so it's now contributing to the organization's success. It's feedback on the behaviors we want to see. That can motivate people to want to work harder and be more successful. Again, most people come to work wanting to be successful. The more you can help them be successful, the more positive they will be. Feedback also improves performance. Constructive feedback or negative feedback is often seen as criticism, but it's actually the best kind of feedback to get. If you're doing something improperly, and think about back to when you were working in the job you're in, or perhaps another job, and you were maybe new to that job, and you're probably, if you're like most people, fumbling a little bit on exactly how to do it, you probably welcomed anyone who would come over and go, here, do it this way. This is the way we do it around here. And then all of a sudden you can feel, oh, I fit in, I'm contributing, and it's what people are looking for. You'll perform better. It's also a tool for continued learning. Um, Most people get feedback sporadically. And some people, it's pretty rare. The idea is if you can continue to get feedback regularly, you're going to continue to grow. You're going to continue to learn. You're going to continue to improve on your skills. That is the key to improving, which is continued learning. So perhaps one of the last ways I'll use to try and reinforce what we're doing here with the 360 is to show you something called the Johari window. It's very, you always know when there's a consultant in the room, or in this case on the webinar, when we're showing you a 2x2 matrix, because we consultants love 2x2 matrix. It explains everything. In this particular one, two consultants, one named Joe and one named Harry, put together, how would I put it? They put together a tool, a schematic that helps people understand knowledge. So let me start to fill this in. So, Johari window. On the top horizontal, we've got two phrases. One says known to self, one says unknown to self. And down the left side, we see known to others and unknown to others. Think of each of these parts of the matrix that are titled public, blind, private, unknown as windows. Think of yourself in that window as a portrait. The public window would be everything that you know about yourself, that you know others know about yourself. So if you've met someone face to face for the first time, there's certain things you know about that you know that that person knows about you. They would see you. They would see how tall you were, how much hair you had, how you dressed. They would listen and hear how you spoke. There'd be a very limited, it would be a small window compared to others, but it would be a window nonetheless. And that's the first one we talk about is our public window. And the other window, which varies in size to the public window, depends how long you've known someone. Things you know about yourself that are unknown to others. So someone you've just met would not know much about you except uh, physical appearance, etc. We call that the private window. So these people who just met you wouldn't know what car you drive, how many children you have, where you went to school, what your hobbies are. So this would be a pretty large window. We're showing them all the same size here, but in essence, they vary in size. The unknown window that you don't know about yourself, and neither do others, deals with anything in the future. Future events that we can't predict. We don't really care so much about this particular window, but for the sake of completeness, we include it. What we really care about is the blind window. And the blind window is this: things you don't know about yourself that others do. So what could be in here? Well, think about managing people, and you may not know exactly how you come across as you manage people. You may not know about that little nervous tick you get maybe when you get annoyed, or how you react when people say, I couldn't get that done, or what it's like for you to get, praise or compliment or something, and how you behave. Others will know because they watch you. Direct reports watch their bosses pretty clearly, pretty constantly, pretty critically. They will know things you don't know. Your peers will as well. So will your boss. They will see you in situations that you're, of course, in, but you're not paying attention necessarily to yourself. We find that most people are not particularly self-aware, so they wouldn't necessarily know all of the things and how they react going forward. So the point about this is that the 360 deals with your blind window. We'd like everything in your blind window that you don't know about yourself as it relates to how you manage, and we'd like that to go into your public window, essentially getting rid of the blind window and having one big, wide public window. You'd know what others know, and therefore you could improve yourself accordingly because you know what your strengths and weaknesses are. That's the Johari window. Now let's talk a little bit about the steps for the 360 itself. There are 5 sections here that I'm going to go through. This is all very practical stuff. It um, it it's pretty much step by step. I want to reiterate though that what's important for you to do is to think about the people that will provide feedback to you. And we'll spend a little time on that when we get to the second section on selecting raters. But all of this is about trying to figure out who can best give me the feedback. So let's jump into this. The first one's around orientation. And there's Michael having trouble again. We have to understand the process. So the process for the orientation is, first of all, people are going to get training on giving and receiving feedback. Well, right off the bat, we made a mistake there to a certain extent. For some of the people that will be giving you feedback, yes, they have received feedback. They've been to this webinar, or they've been to one of the other focus groups that the City of Cambridge had on the 360 orientation. Some of your raters probably won't. These would be people who are perhaps in the association for the firefighters, and they won't have gone through the training, therefore they won't have gone through the 360. You'll need to give them a sense of what this is all about. And I suggest anything in this particular deck, get it from Meg Daleski, and I'll certainly make a note to her to make sure she forwards it to you. Will help give you the information, and them the information they need to do a good job providing you the feedback you need to develop yourself. So the survey is going to be based on the competencies and behaviors that are identified by 2WA as being relevant. What we mean by that is we have included, and you'll have it when you're going through this webinar, a 2-pager that talks about all of the competencies and the behaviors, etc., that create the framework. What you want is to pick people who could give you feedback against those competencies. And you should think that one through, because you could pick just anybody, but you want people who are very good at observing and people that are very good at commenting. The whole process will be delivered via email and browser. So it doesn't matter whether you've got a City of Cambridge email or not, whether you want to use that or you want to use your home one maybe and fill this out at home. Whichever you and the people you choose want to do, just make sure it's an email. Most people will have a browser. I believe all people will have a browser. And we're going to deliver them in an email that says, listen, you're going to go and provide feedback to Michael Howes, and you're going to go to this website. There'll be some hypertext there that you click on. And it'll say, use this ID, and you'll click on that ID, copy paste it when you get to that website. And there you go. You'll be providing feedback to Michael Howes. The survey will be right there in front of you. There are 8 raters in total. I want to make sure I'm clear on this one. 2 of them don't get to choose, but you have to give me the names. And one of them is you, and one of them's your manager. Can't choose different people. Has to be you, has to be your manager. Doesn't matter if your manager's been your manager for a minute or 20 years. Your manager has to be the person who's providing you feedback because that's the way evaluations work. That's the way the hierarchy works. The other 6 you get to choose. Now we're going to suggest you choose people on a bunch of different criteria. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I'm not going to jump the gun there. We, 2WA, will run the process. So we're in the background making sure that everything happens, that emails go out so that people can do fill the surveys out, and then we get the information back and we make sure that a report is created for you that has all your feedback in it. We're going to review each one of those surveys to ensure that they are objective, no personal attacks, they're complete, so to speak. No one's taken any shots, though, that it's all about you and how you manage. Now, that doesn't mean that there may not be some difficult parts to this particular report that you get. In other words, there may be some things about how you manage that may be a little uncomfortable to read, but that's okay. The issue is they will be information that deals with you as a manager, and that's the information you need. Once you get that report, we will have what we call a debrief. So my admin person, Dan Moran, will line up you into about a half an hour, maybe 40-minute telephone conversation with me, and we will walk through your report. What does it say? What do you think people mean, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll get a sense of some of the takeaways, some of the feedback that people have provided, and what we think it means. Um, all of these reports are confidential, so nobody gets to ask for one. HR doesn't get one, and um, the key to remember, though, is that all the comments are verbatim. So whatever anyone wrote down in the report is going to be what ends up in your report. The issue with that is, as much as we say it's confidential, you may read through this and say, hey, wait a minute, I know someone who talks like that. I know someone who's in that situation. It was only him and me. I know who said that. And you might be right, you might be wrong. And what we really ask you to do, though, is do nothing. Don't worry about it. Maybe it was someone. Maybe you know who it was. It doesn't matter. We don't want you to dismiss it. You've chosen these people because you thought they were useful and helpful and could provide you good feedback. Take it as it's delivered to you. Don't go and comment on it, and accept what you're being told. Now, before I move past that, there is one person who you can go to about the feedback they provide, and that's your manager. So managers don't get out of jail free card. They don't get to bypass their normal function of having to provide feedback to direct reports to develop them. That's a key role they have, and we don't let them out of it here. If you see something your manager wrote down that's really puzzling and you're not sure what it means, go to him or her and ask what it means, and that is fair game. Let's move to selecting raters. So I told you about 8. You need to pick 6 because 2 of them, yourself and your manager, are givens and need to be completed and laid out on the rater form that we will also get you. Just a blank piece of paper with space for 8 names. There should be a mix of peers and direct reports. If you've got 10 or 15 people who report to you, you want a couple of people from that group. But you don't need to pick them all, and you don't need to pick ones that are the same. You might pick ones that maybe they're a little bit different. Maybe some of them are a little more critical of you than others. Maybe some of them are a little more insightful than others. You can pick exactly who and what and where and why, but we think it needs to be a mix of your peers and your direct reports. When you get the rater form, you'll see that it says, down below it'll say manager, and then there's 3 spots for peers and 3 spots for direct reports. Please take all of that as just a guideline. If you don't want to put in 3 direct reports, you'd like to put in 4 or 2, that's your call. No one will know. No one's going to push back on it. As long as the sheet is full, we'll accept it as is and we'll process it accordingly. I would tell you, though, you want to make sure that this is a good opportunity to get feedback. Think carefully, think long, think hard. Pick people who are good at seeing situations, maybe analyzing situations, and providing people feedback. I always say pick people who talk a lot. They tend to write a lot, and I find that over time, over the 21 some odd years I've been doing this, people like longer reports where people talk more, and they in there somewhere will lie the explanation for the score they gave them, and that's what people want most is to know, well, why did you give me that number? And if there's something in the words that help with that, people are more content. And again, think about the people who are like that and try and include those where possible into your set of selected raters. Balance between people who can sing your praises and those who would more likely point out your blemishes. Um, it's tough to find someone who can see the same, two sides of the same coin and can speak objectively. So pick some positives, pick some negatives, pick people who provide good feedback. Don't worry about their roles so much. And when I say, of course, we're not in here, so you can ask me questions about what you have about selecting raters. But if after seeing this, you feel that you'd like to bounce things off me because I have helped people select raters for a number of years, please call me. So Michael Howes, 905-517-6358. My number and contact information is at the end. Please feel free to give me a call if you think it'll be helpful. Fill out the survey. So, as noted by email and browser, people get an email that says, here's the ID to go provide feedback to Michael Howes and a password to go along with that. You're going to go to the website link that's there and you're going to fill out the survey. Probably take you about 45 minutes to an hour. At no place in the survey do you have to identify yourself and what you said. Yes, we know, we 2WA could figure out what ID you got and what you said, but we are not interested and we don't go and look at that. So, not to worry about that. You should receive at least one, you will receive rather, at least one ID and password to rate because you have to rate yourself. And everyone has to rate themselves. If you receive another one, it's because someone came to you and said, hi, could you also provide me feedback? And you said yes. So the degree to that you said yes, you can expect a secondary, third, fourth, fifth email from the person you said yes to. Receiving the results, we talked about this. I will receive your report. I will have a look over just to make sure there's nothing in it that's overly personal, and I'll shoot it along to you. That report will identify what you're good at, your strengths, your weaknesses. It will pull together some collective themes, some common strengths, and some weaknesses of the organization as well. When we pull it all together, because we will certainly pull out information from your report and others, not for you to do, just to be aware that by getting everyone's 360, we start to get a picture of the organization itself, and we'll use some of the information to do that. The debrief questions. How do you feel about the report overall? What are your strengths? What are the positives that people noted? What were your weaknesses? What were the negatives? What did you take away from the feedback? Do you have any particular areas you want to focus on? Was the process and the feedback helpful? All these are things that we will talk about on the debrief. Now, half an hour and 40 minutes can take much more than 6 questions to fill that time, and there will be more than 6 questions. But I will start with these 6. And especially number one, I want to get an overall sense of how you felt about the report. Was it a good reflection of you? Was it not? And from there, we'll flow the rest of the questions. So we'll show you a little bit about the leadership framework. And as you go through these, I'm not going to read them all, but I will talk here and there about them. But as you read them, I'd like you to start to think about, well, who could give me feedback on this? And there may be some who can give you feedback on some and not others. That's okay. That's the other reason that you get to pick 8, is that you may need to pick some people who can provide you feedback in some, but not all areas. But by picking a certain group of 8, you'll be able to get a complete picture. And that goes back to my comment about people standing around you in a big circle. Make sure you pick people that are all in your circle so they can all provide you good feedback. Managing and measuring work is about assigning deliverables clearly. It is about implementation. It is about work plans. It's about communicating it. It's about distributing workload amongst different individuals. There's a strong delegation piece at work here. Customer focus is the be all and end all of a public municipality. You're there to provide services. I assume you went into this job because serving others is something that makes you feel good. It seems to be fulfilling. And therefore, we need a strong customer focus. Act for others. Seek to understand what people want. Provide that information. Demonstrate to the customer they're important and that we've heard. And then give them regular and timely information. Good. Operates with integrity, composure, and interpersonal savvy. Someone who's trusted as a leader, someone who can keep confidence, admit mistakes, presents the truth in an unvarnished manner, and can diffuse even high tension situations effectively. Motivating others is key. Managers work with others to help them make the organization successful. One of the series of things that you do are around identifying tasks and obstacles, removing those obstacles, giving people tools and resources they need to be successful, including information, um, and managing it to make sure that things are completed and doing it all again and again and again. So you need rapport with people. You need to find common ground. You need to know what motivates people. You need to delegate and provide feedback in an effective manner. Teams are important. I don't know that there's quite as many teams as people like to talk about. They seem everyone's in a team, and that's not the case. But we need to be able to build effective teams of people. We need common objectives. We need open dialogue. Uh, People need to know who does what, so it's got to be clear about what my role is versus what yours is. We need to let people be responsible for their work, and we need for them to continue, them as a collective, them as individuals, look for opportunities for continuous improvement, and that's going to be an ongoing theme. Dealing with paradox and ambiguity. Think of this as change. Um, you've got to be able to act without having all the information. It's about managing some of the risk and some of the uncertainty. At the same time, we're looking for you to be able to make good decisions, sound decisions around strategic plan values when deciding what you do. Flexible, adaptable. You've got to be able to let go of past behaviors. In other words, you've got to focus on the here and the now and not worry about what happened in the past. So, dealing with paradox and ambiguity. So, what I want you to do is, stop here maybe and go back through and look at those and figure out which ones are your two strengths and which ones are your two weaknesses. And I do that again from a sense of who might see me do these things. And just by having you do this, I think it'll start to help you understand who all the possibilities are in terms of the people who report to you, the people you work with, and will help you make good choices around who should provide you the feedback that you need to be successful. Now, what issues would you like to see addressed in the training and particular skill you'd like to be trained on? Again, we're not live here. Um, I am happy to have you email me, again, contact information at the end, about if there's particular issues you think should be addressed. If there's ways that we can customize the training, we will. So let us know some of those issues, and we'll try and provide you solutions immediately. And that includes particular skills that you'd like to be trained on. We can't promise everything. So we're asking in a very wide open manner for you to give us your feedback and here, identify skills that you might like, and perhaps we can meet your need. But the caveat is that we'll do the best we can, and we will try and make this as relevant to you as possible, because it's really what this is all about. The more effective and the more relevant it is, the more likely you'll use it. Feedback formula. So we do a lot of feedback formula training. It is, as I mentioned, one of the most powerful tools you have as a manager. It needs some practice. No one's particularly good at it right out of the gate, and therefore we have what we call a formula, feedback formula, which is not a formula, we know, but we like the way it sounded. We want people to be identify the behavior that you're providing feedback on, and what that means is, what did you hear someone say, or what did you see them do? It's got to be that tangible. It can't be anything inferred. It's got to be something you observed with your eyes or your ears. You have to be able to talk about the impact so that people understand, especially if it's constructive feedback. They have to understand that that behavior has an impact on people, and very possibly, if it's constructive, not a very good impact on people. You need to change that. And most people are not particularly self-aware. This is a valuable and powerful tool. We talked about the request that we're making about how the person should change behaviors or keep them the same. And that goes to the essence of what feedback is about. It's not a gotcha, and it's not about salary or anything like compensation or anything other than, how can I improve how I operate? So you should make a request. Someone, if they really like what you did, they'd say, well, listen, you need to keep that up because that's really good and that's very important and we'd benefit from that. Or they might say, you got to stop doing that because that is just not what we're looking for here. And it's really dragging us down and we're not as successful as we could be. So we really need you to stop. And it doesn't matter what the request is. Person has got to be able to get out of their mouth the behavior, the impact, and the request that you have or that they have of you. So, a couple of feedback principles. When you're giving feedback, be descriptive, not judgmental. Try and get all the judgment out of your voice. Talk about what you observed. Someone walked in late. Talk about the impact. It really delayed the meeting, so we couldn't cover the entire agenda. Talk about the request. Be on time next time. One could argue the judgmental statement about Sam, it was very rude to come into the meeting late, don't let it happen again, is essentially the same feedback. But if you think about yourself, which one would you rather hear? I'm pretty sure it'll be the descriptive, not the judgmental. And if people can't hear you when you're providing them feedback or direction, they can't um, meet your expectations. And if they can't do that, they're not unlikely to be successful. So be as descriptive as you can. Another set of principles are around specificity, not general. So give people specifics. Don't um, don't pick high, broad themes. So in this particular example, having someone come in, and you've probably been in this situation, they go, "Oh, y'all did a great job, every one of you in the room. I'm so proud of you." Give yourself a round of applause. My guess is there's someone in the room going, "Well, I know I did a good job, but so and so didn't. They actually didn't show up for half of it, or something like that." So be careful when you're providing feedback. If you want to tell people, it's a great job, give yourself a pat on the back. That's okay. Just don't consider it feedback. It's not. You need to find other opportunities beyond these statements to be able to give people the feedback they need to be successful. So I want you to do some practice for me here, please. I want you to pick one of these and write out a piece of feedback. So I pulled these from some 360 reports I've had over the years. And I picked them because they were particularly short, to the point, and not very helpful, frankly, because there's not a lot of words with them. And what I want you to do is take one of them, just one of the 7, go back to my feedback principles and the formula, talk about the behavior, the impact, and the request. You're going to have to make up a little story. That's okay. Use me, and try and write out a piece of feedback that says, here's the behavior I saw or heard. Here's the impact that had on me and maybe others. And here's what I need you to do in the future. Practice writing that out and then share it with people, especially if there's maybe more than one of you in the room. But tell people what you're doing here and share it with folks that you work with. We know that with any management skill, feedback no different from others. We know that people have to practice it or they lose it. Practice it, they don't get any good. So if I just tell you this, you'll never learn it. You have to practice it. So I need you to write it out, and then I need you to say it out loud. And when you get to the training, we'll talk more about the feedback form. So next steps. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. I need you to give me your rater form in about 10 days from today. So I don't know when exactly today is, because I don't know when you're reading this. But I would hope today would be sometime by the middle of April, like the 14th, I think, is a Friday. But certainly somewhere in that week, I would like a rater form filled out properly with 8 names on it, and you're getting that to Dan Moran, my admin guy. I will make sure that Dan sends out to you the blank rater form, and we can go from there. Once we receive your rater form and we process it, you'll get an email with a website address, your ID on it, and a password, and away you go from there. If you have any questions, call me. Call me or email me, but call me. The phone is never far from my ear, and I think I can answer pretty much any question you have, or I can certainly get the answer quickly. So, in a nutshell, and that was a real nutshell, that is what we were talking about here with the orientation. If you have any questions about this, if I have been maybe too succinct in places and I haven't got enough of what you're looking for, give me a call. I can walk you through this either again, certain sections. I can certainly talk through whatever your concerns are. So thank you very much. Appreciate all of your attention for today, and I look forward to eventually meeting you, certainly talking to you when we get your debrief set up, and we'll go from there. So again, Michael Howes from 2WA Consulting. Thank you so much. Pardon my cold, And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.